Hey guys, so it's been a little while since I've made a video, and one of the things that ever since I've started making videos, one of the things that I've been wanting to do is make a collection of safety videos on specific machines that I use here in my shop. And currently in my shop right now, which is an absolute nightmare, stuff everywhere. I'm in the middle of making a whole bunch of cornhole boards. I feel like every time I make a video in my shop, I'm always like, oh, my shop is a nightmare, it's all over the place. I mean, the fact of the matter is, it's always like that. I'm always building something. I clean up. The next project I start, shop, instant nightmare. So, regardless, I had just cleaned off my table saw. There was stuff all over it. I have basically a few things I want to show you guys on the table saw. So this is going to be a table saw safety video, and it's I mean, I could go on and on and on. As I was thinking about making this video, I'm like, man, this video is going to be like an hour long with all the stuff I want to talk about. So I'm just going to go over some basic stuff on table saw safety and how you can really avoid getting bit by that massive blade that's sticking out of the table right now. So yeah, the table saw is, statistically speaking, is the most dangerous machine in the shop, and the reason why is because of the accident rate, the reported accident rate. There's just it has the most accidents out of all the machines. So, not to say that all the other machines are super safe compared to this machine. It's just that it's a machine that's also, if you're going to have one machine in your shop, in your garage, whether you're a full-time woodworker or whether you're just doing it on the weekends, table saws are probably one of the most popular machines. And if I have to say a different one, then maybe a chop saw. Table saws and chop saws are probably the most common between everybody, not just woodworkers. So the chances are also built up to get injuries on a machine that obviously almost everybody has versus a machine that maybe only specific woodworkers would have, right? So, but every machine can be super safe as long as you follow all the guidelines and the safety rules. If you're using any machine incorrectly, then the chances are very high that you're going to get hurt. Not to say that you're never going to get hurt if you do everything right. Even though you do everything right, there's still always a chance that you can get hurt. So I would say, besides wearing safety glasses, one of the biggest rules is, make sure you're good to go. Physically, mentally, when you go to use these machines. And if you're tired, if you're sick, if you're distracted for any reason, you don't want to be sending pieces of wood through a machine that's really powerful with really sharp blades if you're not 100% there and you're not paying attention. So that's like a standard rule. Before you even get going, are you ready to go? Are you confident? Are you feeling good to use this equipment? Just make sure you're ready to go before you do anything. So. Speaking of that word, confident, you want to be confident, but not cocky, right? You don't want to go into this like, oh, I use this table saw all the time. I got this, no problem. Well, that's also mistakes happen, right? You want to be confident. You don't want to be scared. You want to have a healthy fear and respect of all the machines in the shop. But you want to be ready to be working at all times. So, all right, I'm gonna try and make this video as short as possible. Like I said, there's a million different things I can talk about the table saw, but let's talk about some basics. My preference is to be standing here. Obviously, you want to be standing on this side of the table saw, which is the front of the table saw. And the blade is going to be, the top of the blade is spinning at you. Generally, most, if I shouldn't say not all of them, but generally most tools in the shop, the blade is spinning at you and you are feeding the work into the blade, so that way you're working against it and you have a lot of control. If you were to come in from the opposite direction, if you fed your piece of wood in this way, that is called climb cutting. You're going in the same direction as the blade. What is it going to want to do? It wants to rip it out of your hand and shoot it, all right? So you lose all control, all right? You want to go against the blade always. So when you use a table saw, you're using it in this direction, from the front to the back. I generally like to stand so that my right side is in line with the blade, essentially, all right? If I am sending this board through and for whatever reason, it gets caught and it wants to shoot back, it's gonna shoot back and shoot right by me, or it's just barely gonna hit me. I do not wanna be standing in the direct path, okay? That wouldn't feel too friendly, all right? that's my suggestion for you guys, is to be standing, you know, here, out of the way, out of the firing zone, all right, of the wood. Now, if you're a spectator, you definitely do not want to be watching somebody from behind, way back here, again, in the firing zone. If something ever happened, you're gonna get caught, all right? You're gonna get hit. So if you're watching, you should be off to the side, away from any dangerous, you know, flying projectile area, all right? So yeah, that's basically how that goes. All right. When should you turn, you know, when do you use the push stick? When do you not use the push stick? For this piece, for example, it's so small, I would use the push stick right from square one, from start to finish. It's so small. If you have a longer piece, you might not want to use the push stick right away, all right? If you put your push stick down over here, watch what happens. You push down, you're gonna lift up on that board. And if you're lifting up, and if the blade wants to lift up at the same time, it's a combination that is gonna be, you know, painful. You do not want that board shooting back at you. So I'll do a demonstration on cutting a shorter board and a longer board, and how to correctly release your hand and grab the push stick while in the middle of a cut. Well, let's do the shorter board first. I'm just gonna bring the fence over, and I'm gonna make a cut, and I'm gonna show you guys how it goes through nice and easy with the push stick angled. At this point, you might start with both hands, but I'm very quickly going to release my left hand, and it's gonna be all right hand all the way through the blade. When I say all the way through, don't forget that even though you're here and technically the front edge of the blade is done cutting, you're still in contact of the blade. And if you let go here, it could potentially shoot back, all right? When you're using a push stick, when you're cutting anything on the table saw, you always want to go past the blade completely, a 100% past, before you actually let go. Now there's no chance it can shoot back because it's out of the path of the blade. It's out of contact of the blade, all right? Anything that's on the other side of the blade will just literally hang out. The reason why things shoot back is because the blade is putting pressure against the piece of wood. And if it can't go anywhere because the fence is there, it has no choice but to shoot the piece of wood back at you. If you have a scrap piece of wood that's hanging out next to the blade, it can hang out here all day long because there's nothing keeping it. The blade will want to push it that way, and it will go that way because there's no fence, all right? So you always want to make sure that you do not let go of this until you're all the way past the blade. When you get past the blade, you're going to notice one more thing. I'm going to take the push stick up and way up and over the blade. Don't just pull it straight back because you run the risk of hitting the blade and shooting it back at you. So when you're done, you always want to let go and bring it up and over and back towards you. All right, so one last thing. Anytime you're cutting anything, you want to make sure that you set the blade height to roughly the length of the teeth above your stock, all right? Which is, in this case, about 1/8 of an inch to 3/16. And the reason why is because you don't need it way the heck up here. It's not doing any good. It's not cutting anything. The only thing it does is get that blade closer to your hand, okay? You want to make sure it's just above the stock, keeps it as safe as possible while going through your piece completely. All right, let's make a cut. All right, that was a really good example of what happens to the scrap piece, all right? You notice the scrap piece came back. The only reason why it came back is because it's small and light, and there's actually wind and a little bit of pressure coming off from the blade to very easily shoot this back, but only to right here. That was it, because once you get here, there's no more wind, it's not touching the blade, that's as far as it's gonna go. Now, if this was a bigger, heavier piece, say it was this big, this is bigger and heavy enough, it's just literally gonna stay right there. So smaller pieces, yes, will come back a little bit, but that's about it. If I were to let go right here, and I just say I'm done cutting, I'm willing to bet my life savings that this is gonna shoot back and either hit me or fly into my garage door, which I don't wanna do. So always make sure you're going all the way past the blade before you let go. All right, let's make a cut with a longer piece. When using a longer piece of wood, and you don't want to start with your push stick so that you're putting down pressure, effectively lifting this up. You're going to start with just both of your hands. Now, your left hand is super important. It's probably one of the most important jobs of the whole thing until you're able to use the push stick. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be keeping pressure down and in against the fence with my left hand. And you can use your left hand in two ways. You can either leave it right here, resting on the table, and not moving as you slide your piece through your hand, or you can do kind of one of these numbers where you bring it up, you slide it back, you keep sliding it back. I'm staying well away from the blade. I'm not bringing my left hand really close and then bringing it back. You want to stay good 8-10 inches away from that blade. Don't get any closer. At this point, when you get close enough and you have most of your wood, 95% of the wood is now on the table, you can now run. This is super important when using a long board and you're not starting with the push stick. Listen to this point. You always have to have at least one hand on the board at all times. Do not say it's time to grab the push stick and then grab the push stick, because what's going to happen? It's going to shoot back as soon as you let go, all right? So you're going to slide it up. Now, here we go. You're going to slide your left hand back and you're going to wrap that thumb around the back of the board like it's acting like a push stick. You're going to hold it down. You're going to, not like uncontrollably fast, quickly grab this, but like efficiently grab your push stick. Make sure it's here and ready to go. Don't start this cut and realize your push stick is halfway across the shop. Now you're stuck, all right? Make sure your push stick is here and ready to go, all right? Let me run through this again. You're going to send your piece through. When you get ready, you're going to slide your left hand back, wrap your thumb around. You can let go with your right hand. You can grab your push stick, get your push stick on, and then it's right hand all the way through, all the way past the blade, and you're good to go. So let's make this cut. I'm going to cut this with a longer piece of scrap wood now, sticking off, and you'll see that the scrap wood, when it's longer, will just hang out next to the blade because it's got more weight. So here we go. I'm going to get my push stick over here next to my fence. I either like to have it standing up or very clearly and very easily ready to grab on the right side of the fence. All right, you can clearly see that that longer piece of scrap wood didn't move 1 inch. It stayed right there next to the blade. And my other piece is now safely on the other side, and it's a nice clean cut. Whatever measurement that was just an arbitrary measurement. Happened to be exactly 1 11/16. I just kind of threw that on there, but that's it. That's pretty solid, pretty safe way to do it. Now, you're going to notice one thing on this table saw is that it has a really big outfeed table. That means I can send this piece through and I can have it go all the way through and it won't fall on the floor and it won't be, going all over the place, whatever. So if you're working by yourself, it's nice to have this nice outfeed table to catch the wood for you. If you're not working by yourself, if you don't have an outfeed table, when you have a long piece, it'd be really helpful to have somebody catching that board for you. Just one point about the person catching, make sure that they're completely done cutting that piece of wood before you pull the piece away, all right? So if you're catching, you don't want to stop pulling the piece of wood when it's in between the fence and the blade, because you could pull away at an angle and it could get bound up and it could shoot back, or at the very least, it's going to ruin the piece that's going through. Make sure they're already past the blade before you pull the piece away. All right, that was like super, table saw basics, and this video is already like really long. So I guess what I would probably do is say, hey, well, I'm going to show you guys how to use the cross-cutting sled on the table saw, and that would be one video. Here is my miter sled. Here is my spline sled. Here is my miter gauge. All right, there's a million different things you can do on the table saw. You can actually cut across the blade, doing a cove cut. That's like advanced, table saw, not table saw 101. So that was just basic techniques, guys. When you take, for those of you that are going to take my class, I'm going to go over this in great detail a lot. For those of you that are just watching this and doing it at home, feel free to revisit this video. It's super basic, or check out a million other videos that are on YouTube. A lot of people have a lot of different techniques. I would definitely say that not all the techniques out there are the right ones or the most safe ones to use, but there's a lot of good stuff out there, and I'm just hoping to, add a little bit to the YouTube library with this video. So hope you learned something. See you guys later.